Did you know John Wayne tried to enlist multiple times during WT but was rejected for a football injury? Despite never serving, the Duke became Hollywood's ultimate soldier, creating the template for American war heroes that directors still reference today. From Pacific jungles to European battlefields, these films didn't just entertain, they shaped how generations viewed American military might. Number 10. Flying Leathernecks, 1951. Flying Leathernecks throws John Wayne into the cockpit as the hard-nosed Major Dan Kirby, commanding a Marine fighter squadron in the brutal Pacific theater. Director Nicholas Ray didn't just want dogfights, he wanted the psychological toll of leadership when sending men to die. Wayne's performance is a masterclass in stoic command, setting the template for military leaders that would influence everything from Top Gun to Apocalypse Now. The production secured unprecedented access to actual WW combat footage through Wayne's Pentagon connections. Those explosion sequences you're seeing? Real battles where real men died. The studio colorized genuine combat footage and seamlessly blended it with staged sequences, a technique that was groundbreaking but ethically questionable. Critics initially dismissed it as propaganda, with the New York Times calling it mechanical flag waving. But aviation historians now praise it as one of the most accurate portrayals of Pacific air combat ever filmed. Wayne himself considered it a tribute to the Marines, once telling an interviewer, "Those boys deserved better than fake explosions." The film's combat sequences were so convincing that the Pentagon borrowed them for actual training videos throughout the 1950s. Number 9. In Harm's Way, 1965. In Harm's Way drops Wayne into the immediate aftermath of Pearl Harbor as disgraced Captain Rockwell Torrey, given a second chance to prove himself in the Pacific. Director Otto Preminger didn't just want another flag waver, he created a brutal examination of leadership during catastrophic defeat. The film's unflinching portrayal of rape and suicide was shocking for 1965 audiences, with many theaters refusing to show the uncut version. What makes this film stand out is the jaw-dropping naval battle sequences. Preminger convinced the U.S. Navy to give him access to actual destroyers and aircraft carriers, spending nearly $2 million on these sequences alone, about $17 million in today's money. The production was so massive that when they filmed in Hawaii, local businesses complained about employee shortages because everyone was working as extras. Critics were divided, with Roger Ebert praising its uncompromising darkness, while others found it bloated. The film's commercial failure, it lost over $5 million, essentially ended big-budget black-and-white filmmaking in Hollywood. Wayne later admitted he struggled with the film's moral ambiguity, telling Playboy in 1971, "Preminger wanted to show war's ugly side. I just wanted to show why. We had to win." Number 8. Operation Pacific, 1951. Operation Pacific submerges Wayne underwater as submarine commander Duke Gifford, battling faulty torpedoes and his own personal demons after a failed marriage. Director George Wagner secured unprecedented access to actual submarines and naval facilities, filming aboard the USS Hawkbill with real submariners as extras. What makes this movie fascinating is its brutal honesty about American equipment failures. The defective torpedoes shown in the film were a real problem that cost thousands of lives early in the war. The film's most intense sequence shows Wayne's submarine trapped at the bottom of the ocean while oxygen runs out. This wasn't Hollywood imagination. It was based on the USS Sailfish disaster, where men slowly suffocated as Japanese destroyers circled overhead. Wayne insisted on filming in actual submarine interiors despite being severely claustrophobic. The crew reported he would hyperventilate between takes but refused to use a soundstage. Critics initially dismissed it as formulaic, but submarine veterans embraced it. The Naval Submarine League still screens it at events, praising its technical accuracy. The film's box office success helped establish submarine films as a distinct war movie subgenre. Wayne later revealed he took the role to highlight the silent service after feeling submariners didn't get proper recognition. Everyone knew about aircraft carriers, but nobody knew these guys were fighting underwater nightmares. Number 7. The Fighting Seabees, 1944. The Fighting Seabees transforms Wayne into construction boss Wedge Donovan, who convinces the military to create the legendary Seabees, construction workers turned combat engineers. This wasn't just Hollywood fantasy. The actual naval construction battalions were only formed in 1942, making this film essentially a recruitment poster disguised as entertainment. Director Edward Ludwig had unprecedented access to real Seabee training facilities, using actual heavy equipment and explosives that killed 2 stuntmen during production. The film's most jaw-dropping sequence shows Wayne commandeering a bulldozer to push a burning airplane filled with explosives into a Japanese position. This insane moment was based on a real Seabee who did exactly that at Guadalcanal, sacrificing himself to save his unit. Republic Pictures spent nearly 30% of the budget, astronomical for a 1944 B-movie, on this sequence alone. Critics called it jingoistic nonsense, but audiences made it Republic's highest-grossing film of 1944. The real Seabees embraced it so enthusiastically that their official march includes lyrics referencing the film. Wayne's personal connection to the material came from his guilt about not serving. He told an interviewer in 1957, "I wasn't making movies while better men died. I was making movies so people understood why better men were dying." The Seabees still show this film during their orientation, despite its historical inaccuracies. Number 6. Back to Bataan, 1945. Back to Bataan throws Wayne into the Philippines as Colonel Joseph Madden, organizing guerrilla resistance after the devastating American defeat. What makes this film remarkable is its timing, released just months after the actual liberation of the Philippines while fighting still raged in the Pacific. Director Edward Dmytryk shot it while real battles were still underway, creating an urgency most war films lack. The film's depiction of Japanese atrocities was so graphic that military censors demanded cuts, fearing it would harm prisoner treatment. The production faced constant script rewrites as actual war developments occurred. When the Army discovered the real Death March of Bataan was even more horrific than initially reported, they demanded the script be updated mid-shooting. The most powerful scene, Filipino scouts refusing to lower the American flag, wasn't fiction but occurred at Corregidor exactly as depicted. Critical reception was mixed, with some calling it exploitation and others praising its unflinching reality. The film's portrayal of Filipino resistance fighters was revolutionary for 1945 Hollywood, which rarely showed non-white soldiers as equals. Wayne himself called it his most important war film because it highlighted America's earliest defeat and the courage that followed. The Filipino government still screens this film annually on Bataan Day, despite its Hollywood dramatizations, because it remains one of the few films showing their national resistance. Number 5. Flying Tigers, 1942. Flying Tigers launched Wayne as Jim Gordon, leader of American volunteer pilots fighting for China before Pearl Harbor. This wasn't just entertainment, it was emergency propaganda released mere months after America entered the war. The film's timing was so crucial that Republic Pictures rushed production, using plywood mock-ups for Japanese planes because real ones weren't available. What's mind-blowing is that the actual Flying Tigers were still fighting in China while this movie played in American theaters. The film's most iconic moment, where a pilot sacrifices himself by ramming his plane into a Japanese bomber, was based on a real but unconfirmed incident from early reports. The Pentagon was so eager to create war heroes that they approved this sequence despite questionable evidence. Wayne performed many of his own flying sequences despite having no pilot training, resulting in a crash that hospitalized him for 3 days. Critics recognized its propaganda purpose, with the New York Times calling it the right film at the right time. The movie earned $1.5 million, astronomical for Republic Pictures, and sparked a nationwide recruiting surge for the Army Air Corps. The real Flying Tigers commander, Claire Chennault, initially hated the film's inaccuracies but later admitted it brought crucial attention to China's plight. Wayne's portrayal established the template for the Iisaki's American war hero, reluctant but deadly, that would influence military characters for decades. Number 4. The Green Berets, 1968. The Green Berets drops Wayne into the controversial Vietnam War as Colonel Mike Kirby, leading special forces through enemy territory. This wasn't just another war film. It was Wayne's deliberate political statement supporting an increasingly unpopular conflict. Warner Brothers initially refused to finance it, forcing Wayne's production company to cover half the $7 million budget. The Pentagon provided unprecedented support, helicopters, artillery, and even active-duty special forces soldiers as extras, because they desperately needed positive publicity as anti-war sentiment grew. The film's most infamous scene shows the sun setting in the east over the South China Sea, a geographical impossibility that became a symbol for critics who claimed the entire movie distorted reality. Production was plagued with problems, including Wayne's broken ribs from a real helicopter crash and a typhoon that destroyed expensive sets in Okinawa where Vietnam scenes were filmed. Critical reaction was vicious. Roger Ebert called it propaganda so obvious it would embarrass a high school filmmaker, while the New York Times labeled it unspeakable. Despite this, it was commercially successful, earning $11 million. Theaters reported both protesters outside and standing ovations inside, sometimes at the same showings. Vietnam veterans remain divided. Some praise its portrayal of special forces operations, while others condemn its simplistic politics. Wayne never apologized for the film, telling Playboy in 1971, "I wasn't trying to make an artistic masterpiece. I was trying to show why we were there." Number 3. They Were Expendable, 1945. They Were Expendable showcases Wayne as Lieutenant Rusty Ryan, fighting a desperate retreat through the Philippines using PT boats against the unstoppable Japanese advance. What makes this film extraordinary is director John Ford's unflinching focus on American defeat, revolutionary for 1945 when victory films dominated. Ford, freshly returned from filming actual combat footage for the Navy, brought documentary-like realism that shocked audiences expecting heroic fantasy. The harrowing sequence where wounded men are left behind as the last planes evacuate Corregidor wasn't Hollywood invention. Ford interviewed actual survivors. The production received unprecedented military access, using real PT boats and Navy personnel. Ford, a Naval Reserve officer, demanded military discipline on set, making the cast undergo actual Navy training. Wayne, despite his top billing, is deliberately portrayed as secondary to Robert Montgomery, a genuine WW2 naval officer. This casting choice was Ford's subtle criticism of Wayne's non-service, creating tension throughout filming. Critics immediately recognized its significance, with James Agee calling it the only American war film that deserves comparison with the Iwo best war documentaries. It influenced every retreat narrative in war cinema that followed, from Saving Private Ryan to Dunkirk. Despite its artistic success, it performed poorly at box office because audiences in August 1945 wanted to celebrate victory, not revisit defeat. Ford later called it his most honest film, saying, "I wasn't making a picture about winning. I was making a picture about fighting when you know you've already lost." Number 2. The Longest Day, 1962. The Longest Day features Wayne as Lieutenant Colonel Benjamin Vandervoort, leading paratroopers into chaos on D-Day. This wasn't just another war movie. It was the most expensive black and white film ever made at that point. $10 million, equivalent to $90 million today. Producer Darryl F. Zanuck was so determined to make it authentic that he hired actual D-Day commanders as consultants and shot on the real Normandy beaches. The film's most incredible achievement was securing permission to film at actual invasion locations less than 20 years after thousands died there. Wayne nearly wasn't in the film at all. The role was written for Charlton Heston, but Wayne, fearing his war film credibility would suffer if he missed this epic, lobbied aggressively for the part despite being 54, playing a 27-year-old. His casting frustrated director Ken Anakin, who later revealed Wayne wore heightened boots and demanded specific camera angles to appear younger and taller. Critics praised the film's scope while noting its occasionally wooden dialogue. The French government awarded it special recognition for its portrayal of their resistance fighters. At 3 hours long, theaters initially balked at its length, but it became the 4th highest-grossing film of 1962. Its most lasting contribution was establishing the all-star war film format that influenced everything from A Bridge Too Far to Saving Private Ryan. The actual Benjamin Vandervoort called Wayne's portrayal entertaining Hollywood nonsense, but appreciated the attention it brought to the overlooked airborne operations. Number 1. Sands of Iwo Jima, 1949. Sands of Iwo Jima transformed John Wayne into Sergeant Stryker, the tough-as-nails Marine who drives his men mercilessly before making the ultimate sacrifice. This wasn't just Wayne's defining war role, it earned him his first Oscar nomination and cemented the military character archetype that would dominate cinema for decades. Director Alan Dwan secured unprecedented access to Camp Pendleton and actual combat footage, creating battle sequences so realistic that the Marine Corps still uses clips in training videos today. The film's most powerful moment comes when the actual flag raisers from the famous Iwo Jima photograph appear as themselves, recreating their iconic moment. This wasn't just a cameo, it was a traumatic experience for these veterans, with Ira Hayes breaking down during filming and relapsing into the alcoholism that would eventually kill him. Wayne was so moved by their participation that he personally covered Hayes' expenses when the studio refused. Critical reception was surprisingly mixed, with some dismissing it as propaganda while others praised its unflinching combat scenes. Despite this, it became Republic Pictures' highest-grossing film ever, earning $3.4 million on a modest budget. Its cultural impact was immeasurable. Marine recruiting spiked 20% after its release, and striker became military slang for a tough instructor. Wayne later admitted he modeled the character after a brutal drill instructor he'd interviewed. He wasn't likable, but he saved lives by being harsh. The film's influence extended beyond cinema. The phrase lock and load, now standard military terminology, was actually invented for this script. So there you have it, the Duke's finest war films, showcasing not just an actor but a cultural icon who shaped how Americans visualized their military history. Which of these do you think deserves the top spot? Did we miss your favorite Wayne war film? The real question, could any modern actor possibly fill Wayne's combat boots in today's Hollywood? Drop your takes in the comments and prepare for battle. This might get more heated than the beaches of Iwo Jima.